Welcome to EVH Gear Discussion, the weekly EVH talk show officially recognized by the Van Halen News Desk, sponsored by VanHalenStore.com. From Ontario, Canada, my name is Eric Broadbent, your host for this episode, and I'm joined by another fantastic guest, Chris Van Tassel. We've had him on before, and also Shawn Tubbs. How you doing, Shawn?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing really, really good. It's good to have you. It's nice having a chat with you there last night. Talking a little bit of guitar, a little bit of Eddie Van Halen, and getting a look at your collection. So it's we're gonna have a fun episode in store for this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me, Eric. It's great.
Real pleasure. I'm just going to switch the camera over here a little bit so we can see you guys a little bit better and see if I can get you guys on the screen here. So obviously we're going to be talking a lot of guitar, a lot of stuff that you do for your day job, and there's a couple of day jobs that you have. We'll be talking a little bit about what's happening at JRocket with some new pedals post-NAMM, things like that. Some were coming out. We're doing some teasers leading up to that, and then obviously there's some new things out now as well too. So maybe for some people, there's of the couple people in the world that don't know what you do. Tell us a little bit about yourself. A couple of the gigs that you're the high profile gigs and some of your other things that you do as well, and give a little bit of an introduction.
Well, yeah, right now, currently, I just said right now I'm currently back to back, which makes no sense. But right now, I'm playing for Carrie Underwood. I've been with her for about a little over 10 years now. Mm-hmm. Prior to that, I was mainly a session player, and it's still kind of what I love is session work. So between that and playing with Carrie and doing demo videos, I stay pretty busy. That's kind of, and then the rest of it's chasing my kids around the house. I keep up with all that.
Yeah. Well, it's a good gig for sure. And obviously, speaking of the demo videos, that's one of the very first things I had on the itinerary of the show tonight was some of the demo videos. And I've gone back in. Obviously, I've known you for quite some time. The reason why known of you, I should say, but how I discovered you was thanks to Chris and the team at JRocket, because you do a lot of their demos for them. So researching a lot of their pedals when Chris came on the show before, I wanted to surround myself with the brand and saw your stuff, and obviously amazing. But I've been really digging into your stuff lately, as I told you. And one, because I do some product demos and stuff like that too, I have a strong admiration for people like yourself that do that. And the question I had, I'm always long-winded when it comes to getting questions out there. How many of those do you do roughly a year? Because I know you do some for other brands and that too. How many roughly do you do a year, and how long does each one maybe take you on average to produce?
It kind of varies, because a lot of the time what will happen is I'll get into a groove and then I'll end up out on the road with Carrie.
Oh, yeah.
So it puts a big gap in things. So it's kind of hard to say how many I do a year. Generally, though, as far as how long it takes, it's a process, because basically the way it all starts is I'll receive, like, say, Chris will send me an Archer pedal or the Rockaway. Mm-hmm. I have to get the pedal, make sure I really understand the pedal. So I play the pedal for a long time on the mics just to kind of understand, how does this pedal work? How's it reacting to amps I know really, really well? That's why I tend to stick to kind of the same amp on the majority of the demos, because it's like I want to know what the pedal's doing and not be thinking about, well, is it the amp or is it the pedal? I know it's the pedal. This is what the pedal's doing.
That's right. So it's consistency.
I spent a lot of time listening to the pedal. And then once I feel like I've got a grasp on how that pedal sounds, then I start trying to write a performance piece around that pedal. And that can take some time. It's like I'll sit and noodle even more until I've got an idea. And the second I have an idea, I call up Pro Tools, I get a click track going, nothing else, just click. And I play the idea over and over and over until I'm happy with the tempo. And then I'll usually stop and start trying to get an A and B section going. And then once I have that, then I'll start programming drums and really performing it. And then what can be consuming is, once I've written the tune, then I need to be ready to play that song on camera.
Yes. Rhythm
parts, solo parts, ancillary passes. I have to know it well enough to do it on camera. So it's a process. It can take up to 3 days. As far as when I actually start, I would say it takes longer than 3 days, to be honest with you. But from where I start recording audio and then go to video and then uploading, it's about a 3-day process.
Yeah.
But generally, I would say it's about a week in total process, because I don't want to really demo the pedals until I really know what they do, because I'm not so much into, I mean, I am into making sure people know how these pedals sound, but a bigger part of it for me is making sure people understand how to dial pedals and how they react to the input of amplifiers. And, you know, so for me, it's like, if I don't know the pedal that well, I don't want to get caught by surprise when I try to,
exactly,
you know, set something and then just go, oh, I just, you know, blew something through the roof or just dimed my, you know, Pro Tools rig or whatever. It's like, I want to make sure I really know the pedal inside and out. And I, you know, the one thing I'm not the greatest at is just all the, you know, the dialogue of let's get into caps and resistors and all that stuff. I'm a lot more into just, here's how I would dial this pedal as a professional. This is what I would do with it. This is how it responds to these different instruments. And, you know, but yeah, it's I love it. And it was actually Chris that got me into it.
Good.
I didn't really feel like I could ever do something like that. I don't like myself on camera. There, you know, all that stuff. I don't like to hear myself talk and listen to how long I talk. But it was really via Chris's encouragement. I think the very first one I did that was a legitimate demo was my first try was a Tim Pierce pedal.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was the very first one. And then I kind of grew from there, but it was more just, you know, Chris believed in me, but it was more for me to just see if I could do it.
Yeah.
You know, see if I could stand it. And it turns out what I really enjoyed was people's questions.
Yeah, the feedback is back and forth is great, because you learn from a lot of that yourself too.
Absolutely, yeah, but also just realizing I'm actually helping people. It's like, yeah, I'm demoing a product and helping a company promote their product, but at the same time I'm educating. Mm-hmm. That's what kind of brought a smile to my face. I was like, wow, that's cool. Like the one little thing I said that I just said, and you know, just ancillary on the side. Oh, by the way, you might want to check your gain if you're going to crank output, and vice versa. You get all these guys going, man, you just opened up my whole world.
Yeah, so, you're a hero at that point for one little simple tip.
It just makes me smile. It's like, okay, well, that's great. But yeah, it's, you know, it's a lot of work. There are a lot in the format that I do them in. It's quite a bit of work.
I like the one video I was watching of yours here too, is where I forget the actual product, but it's really funny because you actually keep little B-roll clips in there and funny anecdotes where you said you put captions. Shawn is even turning his head in motion with there's two Shawns at the same time. That was hilarious. I mean, that's good.
Well, what had happened is I was editing, and I was just doing my shots, and I was like, oh my God, I did those shots separate. And I moved the same exact way.
Fully choreographed almost.
I mean, my daughters were in here. They were on the ground. They were laying on the ground and laughing. And I was like, okay, I'm going to call this out before anybody calls it out.
That's the best thing to do. Get it out there. I do that too, because, you know, you get the trolls out there and things like that. I mean, we have great fans and we have trolls too, all of us, no matter who you are in the public eye. And it's like, okay, I suck at that. And then, sorry, troll. I took away your thunder. So I got you. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of it too is I've got friends that would bust my balls on that.
Oh, so of course they will.
Yep. I'm shutting that down before it even gets started.
Exactly. Steal the thunder. Yeah. Well, it's cool that you shared that with me, as with all of us too, as far as like the amount of time you put in the videos, because I've done some as well too, that there's sometimes when the video's done, you almost don't like it anymore because it's been such a labor. And there's a funny one that's it's taken me a while, and I'm the same way as you too. Like I like to get a pedal or a piece of gear, and I don't want to even go anywhere online with it until I've had it for 2 or 3 days, until I at least can turn it on and move the knobs and know what it does. That kind of thing. But the one I was doing for this pedal board project recently, I had it all filmed, and it took me about 2 weeks, but I can't necessarily say it took 2 weeks because there were some delays waiting for some product and that too. However, after I shot it, I realized I was pronouncing one of the products wrong. And, you know, there's 3 companies that are working with me on it. And I was like, and the one guy says, don't worry about it. It's all good. You've showed it enough. You showed the product enough that if you're saying it wrong, it's all good. I'm like, no. And the worst part was I green screened my lines for that part. So I got to, you know, set up all the stuff to do the green screening again. And, you know, a different day, mustache is a little bit longer, you know, try to get my hair to look the same, you know, very perfectionist, right? But at least I pulled it through. And now that people are going to go back and watch the video, they're going to say, oh, I see what you're talking about. But if I wouldn't have said anything, no one would have noticed. You know, it's fun.
Yeah, and there's a lot of things that I do just let go that I normally wouldn't have, that I've learned, like, let that go.
You have to.
But the choreographed, like, that was just I couldn't let that go.
No, that was good. I'm glad you kept it. And the good thing for both you guys, if you're searching for JRocket pedals, especially on YouTube, which is the second biggest search engine in the world, your stuff comes up like tenfold. And that, I know obviously you're tagging well, you're using titles well, and things like that. But it's good for both of you guys. Number one, that the pedals are being found, and then number two, that somebody that can seriously play is demoing the product. So that's feathering both you guys' caps for sure too.
Oh, thank you. I'm always blessed that, it's like I think I said it in another interview I did. Nobody sends me like a turkey of a pedal.
Yeah.
Just like I've done all these demos, and gone are the days where guys actually don't know how to make a pedal.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some that are just easy. And of course, the Rockett pedal stuff, it's a blessing. It's like when Chris sends me a pedal, I'm like, sweet.
The most complicated pedal I've ever worked with in my life. I'm still trying to get my head around it. There's this, what's it called? The Boeing spring reverb. It's really complicated.
Yeah, well, it's when you turn to the right, there's something that crazy happens, and then when you turn to the left, something happens, but it's quieter. Yeah.
No, Chris, do you have a user manual download for that pedal in case we have trouble with that?
It's funny because we had that discussion. Do we really even need a manual? It would be insulting to people, but man, there's always somebody.
Somebody's going to get electrocuted, man. I'm telling you.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. So, because I write the manuals, right?
Do you?
So you check out my bad grammar, but what do you say? In the control section, on, more, less.
That's right.
There's not a lot to say, so it's a short manual. But
what's actually cool about that pedal? I'm totally kidding with you, but that's a great pedal. I love it. I was running it even for a while through the 5150 back there. It sounded really, really nice. But I think it's actually very, very cool. You could have easily put a small knob on that thing, but because of the actual full range of that reverb on that pedal, it's nice to have the humongous knob on it. Because you can really get precise. And there's people might think, okay, well, if you go from like 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock, it's going to be in steps. No, it's not. It's like all the way through that range. Full clock. It's nice.
Yeah. Yeah. That pedal's pretty broad for a one control pedal. But what I loved about that control being that big was I knew if that thing was on the floor in front of me,
mm-hmm.
I could get at it with my foot.
Oh yeah, you could. Yeah, a shoe or a sock or a slipper or anything.
Whatever, yeah. But like for me on stage, every once in a while, it's like, man, I got to change something quick.
Yep.
And if I can get at it with my foot, like this guy, this is a really old Deja Vu pedal, but this thing mm-hmm. has been moved way more with my foot than it's ever been moved.
Oh, I believe it.
So the same thing with the Boeing. When I saw that big control, I was like, that's genius, because I'll change that with my foot on the fly while I'm trying to get like a sound dialed in real quick for a live gig. It's killer. Yeah,
it is for sure. And there's a few times I was doing some live demos with it. I had it under my desk here, and there are, of course, when you're on the camera, people can't tell if you're wearing shoes or not. I'm in my socks or whatever, and you could reach down with your toes and you could still turn it. So that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it works for
sure. Truth be told, on that pedal too is we tried other knobs.
Yeah.
And my comment to Jay was, it looks like Beetlejuice when you put a knob that's too small on there, right? When he gets his head shrunken.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It just looks right anyway. So, but we had a knob on there that was too big. So
yeah. No, it works. Obviously, you found the common denominator, which is very, very cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Just before I get into some of the next pedals, I'm going to jump over real quick over into the live chat. We've got a lot of people over there, and if there may be some questions we can ask you as well, but I know there's a birthday as well, too. I'll try to acknowledge that. So let me just jump over there real quick and say hi to everybody. We're doing really good for time, 9:17 here. Thank you, everyone, for joining. So Wyatt Hunt, and actually, it is Wyatt Hunt's birthday, so happy birthday from all of us here, Wyatt. John Peacock's joining, saying, good evening, Eric. This is my first time to the live stream anything. I'm so excited. Well, I'm very happy to have you, and glad this is your first experience. Hopefully it's a good one for you. So far, so good. I'll knock on wood that we continue. Quentin James is joining. Gary Davlin. Scott MacArthur. Hey, everyone checking in. Happy birthday, Wyatt, from others. Adam is joining us, one of our regulars. A lot of regulars you'll see here on the show. Adam is joining us as well, too. Darren Moore. Let me see. Krieger Guitar Wannabe, a great guitar player, a friend of mine, joining. Randy Clark. Hello, Eric, and everyone in the chat. Blackie DH, hey Eric and Guess. And let me see here, scroll down a little bit. Poison Ivy, my Poison Ivy, she's my better half here. She's feeling a little under the weather tonight. She's a real trooper and she's still maintaining the chat. Thank you, baby. Guitar Wannabe, Gary Davlin says hello. Let's see if I missed anybody else here. Quentin James, talking about his bird. Actually, he posted a video the other day. I was watching the show that I had Eric Sands from Positive Grid on, and it was very funny. His bird was watching the show and chirping back to the TV screen. It was pretty cool. It was neat to see
Nice.
that. Let me see here. Just wanted to make sure I haven't missed anybody yet. I think I've got most people. A lot of people, you will find with the show here too, a lot of people talk about guitar amongst themselves in the chat too, which is very cool. So that's what we do, is facilitate a little place for you to hang out and have discussions. You can talk with the guests, talk with yourselves, and that's all kinds of great fun. Rob Cunningham's joining us from Daddario. Fantastic. Rob, thank you very much for joining us. I was talking to Rob yesterday. Rob's coming back on the show. Rob was very kind and hooked me up with that board back there with. He did fully all the Daddario cables, and it's great. Loving it. Thank you so much. And the NYXL, New York XL, whatever you call those strings, got them on the Wolfgang. Loving them. Very, very nice. Tom Platch is joining us, and Adam again too. Let me see here. And yeah, so I'm going to just flag it there so I can remember where I was. It's very hard sometimes. Oh, hang on. Adam says, my birthday is May 17th, Eric, just so you know. Okay, better mark that down. Yeah, I've got to send him some guitar-related stuff for sure. So the next question I had on the itinerary, I'm going to try to go back to... Shawn, can I have you... Can you turn to your right a little bit just so I can fit you in the screen? Yeah, that's perfect. If you can hang it right in there, that's perfect. It's not your fault. Just the way.
I put my feet up on the desk and do. Oh man.
Yep. You have to put your foot somewhere else, I guess. Put it on top of one of those beautiful amps.
Now.
No, don't do that. So I got to see. It was really cool getting to meet Chris at NAMM. And it was very, very cool. Obviously, a bunch of new pedals coming out, and I know obviously what we're going to talk about next. But the audience doesn't know. Tell us a little about what was leading up to NAMM. Obviously, we got to talk about the Rockaway Archer, a very exciting pedal right now. Shawn knows all about that one. Tell us a little bit about that and what else is new and exciting from JRocket.
Yeah, sure. So we kind of took a break from trying to really push product out there so we could develop, and we wanted to spend a lot of time doing market research and find out what people really needed. You know, there's a lot of stuff people want,
of course,
but they get it, and it's kind of novelty, and it wears off fast. And we kind of want to supply stuff that people are like, man, I got to have that in my system. And it's not always a pedal for some sort of sonic alteration, but an accessory or things like that. So, we tried to create things that don't necessarily exist or existed in a way that just didn't. I don't know, that didn't translate, things like that. And so at NAMM, we showed off a lot of prototypes, and we learned, from the year before that we don't want to release 20 pedals all at once, because then a bunch of them just kind of get lost in the mix. So we introduced what's coming out throughout the year, and that included, we didn't want to call it this, but it just kind of stuck because we're lazy. But the Q series pedals, which was based on the idea that Steve Stevens gave us for that Rockaway Archer, having a 6-man graphic EQ and an overdrive all in one. And, I get people calling me all the time, wow, that's never been done before. But I did have somebody say that Pete Cornish did something similar in one of his rigs, but I don't think he did it with a graphic EQ, but neither here nor there.
Sure.
I haven't seen one out there. And the more we thought about it, we just realized, wow, what a great idea, because for instance, like a Klon. I'm kind of getting sidetracked here.
No, it's okay.
A Klon has a certain mid-range sound, and some people love it. Some people complain about it. But you can maintain that Klon or Archer type of overdrive characteristic. And if you want to EQ it a little bit and keep that overdrive characteristic, you've got endless possibilities, which is great. So that spurred on a whole bunch of other ideas to do a compressor, which is coming out next month, called the IQ, which is the same thing. It's a really nice compressor circuit, but it has the EQ pre-compressor.
Okay.
And I guess in a way it kind of acts as a multi-band, poor man's multi-band compressor, but it's different, and I didn't think it would work. It was a concept, and we built it, and it was like, wow, that's really cool. And it turned out really, really nice, because, most compressors are going to color your sound. And the whole idea behind this EQ was so that you could uncolor your sound.
Nice.
Or you color the crap out of it, whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
So we've developed a pedal with Mark Lettieri from Snarky Puppy that's going to be in that Q series. We were working with Keith Urban on one, but, that's just been up in the air and sideways. So
I remember you telling me about that before, yeah.
Yeah, and, all of that spurred on ideas to work with Shawn on a pedal. And I knew that Shawn was probably going to be about the most picky of all of them. And so
And that's a good thing.
we've been able to let him live with different circuits. And I think he's finally settled on something that is at least going to be the catalyst for where we go with the pedal for him. And we plan on trying to come out with his, I don't want to call them signature pedals anymore because we're not really going to do that anymore, but it's going to be designed for him, kind of like, the Rockaway.
Yeah. In conjunction with Steve Stevens or in conjunction with Shawn.
Collaboration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But this is going to be something that, he wants to put his name on because he uses it.
Yeah.
I don't want to just do a product just to say, oh, I've got somebody's name on there.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, so we're doing accessories like a distributor. Instead of having to have a daisy chain, it's a distributor that has filtered outputs, so it cleans up your signal.
And you had that on the floor at NAMM, didn't you?
Yeah. It's called the juice joint.
Yeah, I like that.
And it's great. I actually find it really useful at home. It's not released yet, but every time I have to get out one of those stupid daisy chains, I'm just like, oh, God, I hate the way it looks. They sound terrible.
Now, correct me if you're wrong, or if I'm wrong. Isn't that something that you physically charge and it charges up? So
if you have like a one spot, spots can be noisy because they're a switching transformer and they just, they are. That's just nature of the beast. And, certain pedals, like we have a pedal for Josh Smith called the Josh Smith Dual Trem. And if you hook up a switching power supply to that thing, especially a noisy one, some are noisier than others.
Oh, it accents it.
You hear a whirring sound and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
And then you stick this distributor in there, it's a filter in between, and all that mess goes away, which is great.
That's nice.
But that was kind of a product of the fact that we were coming out with a battery power supply.
Okay.
So you could completely detach from the grid, right, and just be completely noiseless.
Yeah.
And I know that Sanyo did that Eneloop pedal, and it took a long time to charge. It didn't hold a charge for very long. Our mutual friend John Chandler, when he owned Pedal Train, came out with that little Volto thing, and they all worked, but I think guitar players don't want to have to charge their stuff. So we came out with a battery from some crazy battery genius guy out in California that makes these really gnarly batteries for the government. And so we had him design this battery, and we had the prototypes at NAMM, and we were literally giving them the test ride there. And man, we plugged those things in and left them plugged in all weekend, and they held their charge all weekend. And I remember telling Jay, got all the stuff back, they shipped it back. It was probably a week later that it showed up, and it sat there for a while, and I opened up one of the cases and I pulled the pedal board out, plugged it in, and it was still working.
Still had juice.
Like 2 weeks later.
That's insane.
It was crazy. Yeah, now, of course, you put bigger milliamp draws on it, like some Strymon.
Modulation. Yeah, anything with a modulation draw, for sure.
Yeah, but it was still pulling almost a full day. With
That's good.
Probably 1,000 milliamps draw.
That's nuts.
And it was dead quiet. It literally made everything sound better. So we thought, okay, well, we don't want to have all these outputs.
No.
So we had one output that goes into that little distributor. And you could just go one output with a daisy chain if you want. Of course, sure. But if they go into the distributor, have multiple filtered outputs. And it was a really cool device, but we're still working on it because that one's going to take a lot of R&D. And then, we've got this pedal called the Majestic coming out. We've got a whole mini line of pedals, which will be a boost with a switchable transistor buffer. We're going to have an overdrive, a 4-knob delay pedal, and a compressor pedal in this mini series. They're all going to be $99, all made in the U.S.
Great
all the
stuff.
Same quality. They're going to be anniversary pedals for us because this is coming up as our 10th year in business, and
that's a big
one.
one.
We're just flat out just not making as much money off of these because we wanted to release something that really appeals to a different demographic. They're still really good sounding products. Same build quality as the Tour Series, just even smaller, and $99. So we're hoping those translate well. And
good price point.
I got the first prototype in today with the delay pedal, and it's great.
Oh, good.
Really good. So pretty happy with that. But yeah, I don't know. We got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to release probably something new every other month this year, so we can just really kind of keep that.
That's good.
Present in the market.
Instead of 12 at one time, every month or something like that, every other month. That's good. That's really nice. It's manageable.
Yes. Yeah, so guess who's going to be busy for probably the next year and a half? doing video.
I love it. And it's really funny too. Like, talk about that. You mentioned a word a minute ago. I forget exactly how you described it, but you said about taking things out of your sound necessarily, not as opposed to adding them. And the video that you did, Shawn, with the Rockaway, which is a really cool pedal. I like the way you explained it. I'm sure it was on that video. I've watched so many of your videos. I'm just like, I'm kind of drawing a blank with all of them. But you had actually said, don't go down that rabbit hole. And I used that term live today when I did a live broadcast today doing a demo for some Positive Grid stuff. And I referenced you, and I said, I forget which video Shawn was talking about, and I was saying, don't go down the rabbit hole of gain, because with these simulators, you've got gain, and it's almost like you can turn the dial around like 360 and just keep on going. There's more gain, more gain, more gain. So don't go down that rabbit hole of gain. You said the same thing with the Rockaway Archer. You said, now let's go here easy with this. We're going to add just subtleties to it, and then you really hear it. Because if you start diming everything, all of a sudden, okay, well, I don't even know if I'm hearing anything anymore, because you've just crammed the frequencies. And you did a really, really good demo on that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the main thing is when I got that box, I realized it's not a good idea to just dime each EQ up or down, because what happens is you get ear shock, or I call it ear shock,
and then you've lost it.
Yeah, it's almost like being in front of a wedge and there's feedback, like a 2K. It just blows you out.
Yep. And
then for the next 15 minutes, you can't hear 2K.
No, it's like that pop. You get that pop, and all of a sudden your ear's hot, like a hot poker in your ear, and you're done. So yeah, the little subtleties, you could do that for hours as opposed to one push and you're done. But I know Steve Stevens just got back from his European tour. I was talking to Steve and Josie the other day. And was he using that pedal on the board over there? Do you know?
Yeah, he was. And he just texted me yesterday, as a matter of fact, saying the same thing, that they're back. And that Thomann, the big Guitar Center chain in Europe, did a big extensive video on it. I haven't seen it yet.
Good.
But Hans Peter Wilfer, he's the owner of Warwick.
Yep.
And they're our distributor for most of Eastern Europe.
Yep.
And we sent him out some units before they were really in production, so he could have them at Music Messe. And Steve was out there, and he demoed it to a ton of people. So I'm curious to see what the reaction was with it. But so far, I think it's all been positive.
Good. Well, I like what you said earlier on too, when you said you're kind of shying away from calling them the artist pedals or like a signature pedal. And obviously, myself being a big Eddie Van Halen fan, I'll buy anything that he could put his logo on a Pringles can, and I'm gonna buy it. Now, but not everybody's like that. There are the diehard fans like that. Like, so Shawn Tubbs has a signature pedal. The Shawn Tubbs fans are gonna buy it, and there's gonna be the other people on the other side of the coin that may not necessarily know Shawn Tubbs, but okay, now there's this Shawn Tubbs pedal that does this. Oh, I need it to do that, so I want that pedal. So I can see there's two sides of the coin to people like that. Some people may shy away because it's a signature thing. Well, if I buy that, I'm going to sound like Eddie Van Halen, but I don't want to sound like Eddie Van Halen. That's, you can see the both sides of the coin. So I like the approach that you're taking to that. It's very cool.
Yeah. And I had to kind of throw that one by Steve Stevens in hopes that, he'd be interested in it. And, thank God he's a very professional guy and no ego to him, which is...
I know.
I hate to say that, but that's rare with somebody who has achieved that status. And he's like, yeah, man, that's totally cool. I like the fact that, maybe some people aren't going to get the fact that Rockaway, because it's cool, right? Rockaway.
Yeah, it's hometown. And
that's perfect. But that was his hometown. And it's got his ray gun logo on there, stuff like that. But it's still kind of subtle because, I kind of reluctant to bring this up because, a lot of people are sad, obviously, about Allan Holdsworth. I
had that on my question to ask you about that tonight. Obviously, that's dear to both you guys, especially you guys working with him directly. That's a huge loss, but you go ahead.
Yeah, well, I'd definitely love to talk about that in a little bit. But, we did his signature pedal, and I remember I got a text or an email from a guy named Kurt Rosenwinkel, great jazz player, I think New York-based, and I got a picture of his pedal board, and it's got the Holdsworth on there because he's a big Holdsworth fan with a piece of tape over his name, And I see that a lot, whether it's one of our pedals or somebody else's. They just don't. I mean, and I get it. You don't want to have somebody else's name. We're like, I don't know. Clothes are different, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's everyone's different. Everyone's different. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's just a thing, and some people think that they're going to be judged by it too. You know what I mean? It's whether it's what a kind of guitar you're playing, a kind of amplifier. You know, it's like, okay, well, I can't show that I'm playing a PV, or I'm gonna get laughed at, or meanwhile it's great, or whatever the case may be, right? Or it could be like a Fender Deluxe or something, and you're playing in a metal band. I can't let my guys out there with the barbed wire see I'm playing this, or they're gonna hate me and throw beer bottles at me.
Yeah. Well, then that kind of begs the question now for Shawn's pedals. What do we call it?
Now, what is it again? What is it exactly? What's the effect?
It's going to be an overdrive.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to be definitely something of his creation for the most part.
Nice.
Which I like because, Shawn is one of the more particular players, but in a way such that he really knows what people are looking for before they know what they're looking for.
Yep.
We're going to call you the Apple computers of overdrive. Steve Jobs.
There you go.
But and I get that because everybody's searching for that amazing tone, and thank God nobody finds it, because that's what keeps us in business.
Exactly.
Right?
That's right.
Keep searching. But every time I think that's it, I've found it.
Mm-hmm.
It could be 2 hours later when I'm like, it's not quite right.
Nope. Exactly.
And I move on. And it's a never-ending thing, and it's great. I love that because your tastes change, your styles change, everything changes. But, rolling back to what we said earlier, we want to provide products that people need.
Yeah. Not just want, but need.
Yeah. And so I'm really confident in Shawn's ears that we'll come out with something that people go, yeah, that's a mainstay in my system because it's just right,
Yeah.
And I always say that we don't design pedals necessarily to sound good. We design them to feel good.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. And
So-
a need pedal is a lot justifies, or actually turns into a lot more sales than a want pedal. All of us want pedals. We know, okay, there's things that get in our way, finances, whatever. We
Sure.
can't go get them, but needs tend to turn into sales a lot quicker than a want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. And sometimes it takes a lot longer to get there and get people on board with something like that, because whistles and bells and wow factors, they really get people interested, because a lot of people today, because it's all internet driven, they buy with their
It's huge.
or they buy with because of a sample of some crazy sound.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it sticks, sometimes it doesn't, but at the end of the day, we always go back to our overdrives, and I'd say delays are probably the other pedal.
Yep. I'm not surprised in the least that it's an overdrive pedal that you're working on, Shawn. And I'll tell you the reason why I say this. And here again is another feather in both of your caps, obviously. Number one, I saw you on your small board. This is a video I was raving about. I posted it today, your small fly rig board, you call it. First of all, I was telling Shawn this last night. I was totally lost in his atmospheric sound he was creating. I mean, it's just hypnotizing. It's like listening to the waves of the ocean, just putting you to sleep. And I mean that in all due respect, in the best way. Absolutely beautiful. I mean, I can listen to Van Halen stuff and shredding stuff all day long. Love it. But I really like to turn that into do a 180 and listen to this atmospheric stuff. That's what I call it anyway. It's what you do. And you were demoing these pedals, and you got the 45, and you got a couple of the other ones. I think you might have had the Archer, and I forget. But anyways, you were saying, and you used the term how the pedals stack really nice together. They stack into one another, drive to drive to drive to drive. And either one of you, both of you, can comment on this. Without giving away the secret sauce of the pedals, what is the approach from JRocket, and how do you think it maybe differs from some manufacturers, without naming them, how they work so well together, especially when you're doing gain into gain into gain, and still come out sounding nice on the outside of that?
Well, there's kind of a story associated with that. So years ago, we released, and I happen to have one just sitting here. It's not like a prop, but if you guys remember the original Blue Note.
Okay, yeah.
All right. So that was part of the Pro Series line. And we released this pedal through the gear page, because that was our outlet at the time.
Sure.
And a bunch of guys bought them, and we started getting feedback after selling, I think, maybe 10 of them. And, because it's labeled the Blue Note, it was mostly blues players that bought it. And a bunch of them came back and they said, yeah, I love the sound of the pedal, but it's got too much gain.
Okay.
And we're thinking to ourselves, well, just turn the gain down,
right?
No brainer.
Yep.
But it just didn't translate. And so we thought, okay, well, we just literally reduced the value of the gain pot.
Okay.
And re-released it. And I loved the way the pedal sounded, and I can totally understand where they were coming from, that it had too much gain, because you could get it, pretty rocking.
Like almost, would you say almost distortion pedal level, or just under?
Definitely medium overdrive.
Okay, yeah.
And, ironically, we ended up releasing that original version after 10 of them were sold, and that ended up becoming the Animal, because they were so drastically different just from different change in value. Well, then the new Blue Note that we released was a really low gain, almost tube screamer type gain level, but it had a bigger bottom and a little bit more EQ ability. And it translated. People loved that one. And it just became a really transparent overdrive. So saying all that to answer your question was, wow, I mean, these are so similar, circuit frequency wise, feel wise, everything, that it would only make sense that you could start stacking these things. Mm-hmm. And instead of, you take a pedal like an Archer or something that's got a really distinct frequency range, and you stack it with something that has a completely different distinct frequency range. Well, one of them's going to have to dominate, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you're gonna end up having a little of each, and you may not be satisfied. Jack of all trades, master of none kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. But with similar circuitry, or at least frequency ranges, you don't tend to battle that when you're stacking them. You're just adding a little bit more. And that's really what you're doing when you're stacking. You're just looking to add more gain. You're not really looking to add anything else. And so we kind of use that principle as we develop the different levels of gain to these pedals. Now, not all of them are based on the same circuit. It was just those two. I think you had the GTO on your board, right, Shawn?
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I remember seeing that. Yep.
My board's right here. Yeah, it's I did the Petty Blue Note 45 GTO.
Yeah. And that's a drastically different pedal, but
it
happens to work.
It was perfectly fine, because my thing is I don't understand, like I'm actually holding an Archer, but I don't understand all the circuitry to the degree, or at least to the point where I can say, well, it works because of the circuitry. My whole concept has always been, if you're going to stack pedals, always go, obviously, your lower gain pedal. Like, to me, even though you can crank an Archer, to me, I would always dial these really low gains. So that's going to be first in the chain. And then anything after that is going to be slightly higher gain. And then if I want to bump them, then I'll turn the Archer on with them. But, it's like, even like an Archer, the dude pedal. It's like these two guys, you could do that. Mm-hmm. I don't know why they work. I don't know why they're happy that way. But that's always a concept for me, is always go really low gain to your high gain pedals. And if you're not getting quite enough, then turn on your first low gain pedal into that pedal and just see what it does. It may not always work, but that's my concept. I honestly don't understand the circuits enough to know, germanium and silicon, there's all these different type, it's like, I don't know why that would work. Just some do, some don't.
What I tell people, and I hear again too, I know nothing about pots and circuitry and things like that. I try to make it as simple as possible, and I kind of get a grasp of it. I tell people, when pedal to pedal to pedal like that, it's almost like an ice cube tray, and Eddie used the term cascading gain a lot too. It's a matter of volume and then preamp, and volume first, and then obviously then that gets your gain, things like that. However, with the pedals, it's like flowing your ice cube tray a little bit. It overflows. Eventually, you've got your full gain or full tray of water, right? Yeah. But they do work very well together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just for me, it's just the simpler the better in mentality. Always, like the Blue Note is a perfect example of a no-brainer pedal to have very first in your chain.
Yeah,
it's not going to argue with anything higher gain than it. So it's just But to me, once again, it's just low gain to high gain. Don't try the reverse. Now, I'm kind of stepping on my own foot, because you can take, and I've seen guys do it, and it's something I actually may try. You can take, say, a pedal that's not necessarily a gain pedal, it's just a boost pedal, or it's a buffer pedal, but it's got EQ.
Yeah.
You could essentially put that on the back side of your chain, on the very end of your overdrive chain and distortion, all that, and you could turn that on to actually raise volume without raising gain. Now, if you're killing the front of your amp by doing that, then you're creating gain. But also what it allows you to do is you could feel like, oh man, I'm going to bump this solo, but when I bump the solo to the front end of my amp, even though it's not creating gain, now it's creating a top end I don't like. Well, there's an EQ in that pedal. So you'll roll off a little bit of that top end, and now your tone's magical and bumped where you want it without hurting anything. So I'm kind of contradicting myself to say strictly boost, but for the most part, that's what you want to do. It's like there aren't any set rules. Whatever works. But.
Yeah, kind of know the basic of the rules, and that's what it applies to anything, music, photography, anything. Know the rules and then break them. You know what I mean? Know the logic, I guess is what you should say. Know the pedal logic and then break them. The only pedal I have on my board right now that's JRocket, and I happen to love it to death, is a tranquilizer. Do you have that one on any of your boards?
You know what? It's not on my board. It's right.
You have it?
Yep. Boom.
Chris, what I really like about that pedal, that is a great pedal. Without even, even if I don't know if you could take all the pots out of that, other than just whatever the circuit is when it turns on and off. There's such a nice warm boost to that. Now I'm running it through some super high gain amplifiers. Any one of the 5150 amplifiers back there you see behind me, obviously very high gain amps. Now I don't use it on a distortion channel at all. I really like it on clean. And for the longest time, I've never really had. I've had some tremolos and things like that in the past. But there's a song that I did with my band that I had, when I recorded in the studio, I used a real Leslie on it. And to simulate that, I would actually use my Phase 90 and crank it up to about 2 o'clock, maybe 3 o'clock even. And on a clean channel, it'd give you this nice riding the waves, just a beautiful tranquilize feel. And with the tranquilizer, I find myself almost wishing that had like a DSP in it where I could say, okay, I like that preset, let me save it. And I turn some knobs, I like that one, I want to save it. Because there's so many things you can do with that pedal. But just on the clean channel, stepping on it, there's a instant warm boost. Not crazy volume. It's enough. It's dBs that the ears will notice it. But it's just a beautiful, beautiful tone. And I think a lot of people need to check that one out. I'm sure it's doing well sales-wise. But, man, check out the Tranquilizer. Some great demos. And you've done that one as a demo, have you not? I think, Shawn?
Actually, I did a demo of, 5 pedals, Chris, at once?
Yeah.
I think it was called the Jam, I think is what I called it. And it was a Tranquilizer, the Hooligan, the Lenny. What else did I do in that one, Chris?
Did you? No. Have you done one?
Maybe it was the GTO and the 45 cal.
Okay, probably.
But I basically just put them all in one performance.
Nice. Yeah, take care of them all in one shot. Something else too, that a lot of the people that watch this show, obviously the people that watch the show with the EVH gear, they obviously have a lot of the Van Halen amps. And I'm going to tell you another product that works very, very well with any of the 5150 series amplifiers, and we just talked about it, is the Archer. But a lot of people wouldn't associate that with the amplifiers that I use. And if I could give some suggestions, with the first series of the Lunchbox, I've got both of them back to try to turn my chair so you can see them. I've got 2 versions of the Lunchbox. The first version of the Lunchbox, the LBX 15-watt amplifier that came out, it was 2 channels, a dirty channel and an insane dirty channel. A lot of fans were asking for something a little different, so they come up with a new one, which is now my favorite amplifier. Clean channel, and a beautiful clean channel, very Fender-y, obviously coming from the same family, and then a pretty cool, pretty awesome dirty channel. On the first amplifier, I don't think it's a flaw in engineering, I just think it is what it is. When you change from the rhythm channel to the lead channel, there's a noticeable drop in volume. And I mean, here again, you guys might know better. If I was to say 5 dB, is 5 dB really noticeable? Is that something you'd notice somewhere in there? Okay, so maybe we'll just say that for argument's sake, 5 dB. Yeah, maybe it's a little bit less, but it's enough where it's just like, you don't want that guitar solo to rip your head off, but you want, when it's time for guitar solo, dude's doing a solo, let's watch. And it wasn't there. And the Archer, with no gain, just set with volume, with maybe a neutral tone, was that secret weapon for that. So if anyone has the first version of the Lunchbox and you want to look for a really cool pedal when you want to jump over to the lead channel, it's going to be a 2-step. It's going to be changing the channel and stepping on it, but it's pretty easy to do, and it works very, very well. Just a suggestion as well. So there's some more Van Halen fans that might check that one out.
Yeah, for sure. The Archer is really, really good for that, because I've coached a lot of guys on their tone. It's the same thing, just telling them, look, even if you've got like a modded JCM 800, more of and you like it high gain, man, go ahead and run it, back the gain off a little bit less from your high gain tone. And then, find a neutral position on the Archer. So find as unity as possible, tone-wise. Try it with the gain off and the output matched to unity and even tone, and then gradually bring up the gain and gradually manipulate the tone. And it's just insane how well that pedal works into a higher gain tone without it squishing down. Because usually when you crank into an amp like that with pedals, what's going to happen is going to oversaturate, and it's just going to bump and just kind of give you the same ride, but yeah, something magical with that circuit. It just works really well.
It works.
Really well.
I've gotten some weird comments on YouTube as of late too, because people think I'm crazy because I've been playing a lot of demos of the new Lunchbox, and to be honest with you, I don't even change channels. I stay on the clean channel, and I use the MXR 5150 overdrive through that, and I'm absolutely in heaven with it. Now that's a high gain pedal as well too. They call it an overdrive. It's more. I mean, Chris, you'd know obviously manufacturing pedals. It's not an overdrive. It's a damn distortion pedal.
Right.
But whatever, you can bring that gain back, and it even has a boost on it on top of that, so it's almost like, okay, I'm going to push you over the cliff, and now I'm going to put a rocket on your back to get you to the bottom of the pit freaking faster. But it sounds heavenly through that Lunchbox. I keep it on the low switch, so I'm down to like 5 watts, whatever, and I turn it up loud, and with that overdrive, it's absolutely to die for. So very, very cool. I love that. But Shawn and I had a little bit of discussion. Since we've brought up the man himself again, Eddie Van Halen. We were talking last night, and Chris, you and I have shared this conversation before too, and it gets talked about on the show a lot, is Eddie Van Halen. So everyone, all these young kids that are out there today, they're copying Eddie Van Halen, and us older guys too. We're still chasing the licks, and we're always going after the solos, and the kids can do it really, really well. The kids can do it better than we can these days, which is crazy, thanks to the YouTube and things like that. But one of the often overlooked things, and this weeds out the good from the bad, is when we sit there and focus on the rhythm chops. And Eddie's rhythm chops are something that is absolutely insane crazy. And I said this to Shawn last night. I want to get your take on it, and Shawn can expand on this too. I said, and I've said this several times on the show, I think where some of these crazy-ass rhythm chops come from Eddie is I attribute it to a few things. Number one, I attribute the upbringing of his father and the musical styles of his dad. I also attribute it to playing with his brother, like basically waking up, whatever time to wake up in the morning, music, get a quick sandwich, music, party music, all that kind of stuff. No bass player for the most part. So so I gotta fill in these holes where there's normally a bass player, and then fast forward a little bit to the future. David Lee Roth, gets into the band, begs himself to get into the band, gets in the band, brings in some R&B and soul, and a lot of different roots to the music where not necessarily rock was having that. So you've got this hodgepodge of ingredients now that makes this shuffle, swing, big band, all that stuff. Long story short, what do you think? Do you agree with any of that, or do you have any other input on how this guy come up with these monster rhythm chops?
Yeah, I actually totally agree with that. I think, the fact that he's a piano player, he probably has a brain developed for that rhythmical side, the bottom end. One. But I have heard somewhere, and somebody out there in Van Halen then might be able to substantiate this, but I have heard when they were Mammoth, when they first started out, long before Van Halen, they did like 15-minute fusion type songs. They weren't playing, from what I've read or been told, that it was all David Lee Roth that said, no, we're going to make music that people want to dance to, right?
Yeah. He knew right then and there that the bar owners wanted people to be dancing and buying drinks.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that he had to be a more solid rhythm section because of the music that they were playing. From what I vaguely recall, that their original bass player they weren't all that impressed with, and I don't know. It's hearsay. You never know what to believe of the whole history of Van Halen, but I really truly believe that based on my upbringing, playing in bands and stuff, before we didn't have YouTube to tell us every little detail about everything happened. And
you'd read a newspaper.
I remember sitting there with vinyl records, just destroying them to learn like Spirit of the Radio from Rush.
Yes.
And I did it the way I thought it was right because I couldn't see people play it, and things that I thought might have been guitar turned out to not be guitar in some of these songs. I'm playing the parts. I'll never forget when I learned Van Halen, Women in Love, that tapping thing, right? So, years later, I find out that he was using a delay to get all that stuff. And so I learned how to triple tap that thing. I was doing the delay parts, but
that's great.
I got so good at it that you couldn't tell.
Yeah.
I can probably still do it today, but it's because I didn't know, and I bet Eddie being, at the time, 16, 17 years old, playing in a band like that, he was probably just doing what he thought filled in the gaps.
It's almost like it's like these kids bands you see on YouTube. You'll see them singing, and they can't afford a delay unit. They don't have a sound man, so they'll sing the echo part. It's hilarious.
God, I'll never forget when I heard Eruption for the first time, and it was like, the dude has an octopus for a hand.
Yeah.
You know, thinking, how is that even possible?
And he's not a big man. He's not a big man.
But then when I finally saw how it was done, I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
You know, even though it's still cool, but I just didn't have the brain for that when I was that young. So
yeah, that's like I always tell my boy too. I tell him when he's learning something, you know, he'll do something, he'll jump from the second fret, and like, because he thinks he has to jump from the second up to like the ninth or something. You know, no, think about this. Most guitar players are lazy. They don't work that hard. Let's analyze what they're doing. He's here in this position. You know what I mean? Because it's, and as of course, if you're Steve Vai or Yngwie or something like that, you're going to do that to kind of embellish the notes where you could play in a simple position, but it's more of an embellishment or kind of a trick, you know, whatever. But you know, that's the thing too, because we didn't have the videos. We didn't see what Eddie was doing. You just, it's a guessing game what was going on.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't disagree at all with you that in my opinion, in rock guitar, my two favorite rhythm players of all time are Eddie and Malcolm Young.
Yeah, Malcolm.
Yeah. I mean, they're different. And, you know, I always listen to that rhythm track underneath the solo for Mean Street.
Okay.
You know, if you really focus on what he's doing underneath the solo, it's like the most badass rhythmical funk kind of thing going on. It's just awesome. But if you don't focus on it, you don't really hear it because you're, you know, just enamored by the solo part. But
I have a lot of the Van Halen fans have these instrumentals. They basically ripped it. Some of them come from the video games, like the Rock Band or Guitar Hero and stuff like that. Have you heard the instrumentals, Shawn? Have you heard them with all the vocals stripped?
Oh, yeah. No, not that. I mean, but it does remind me of what we were just talking about with Eddie. It's what I was enamored with, and still am. It's like for me, it's I can remember hearing I Like Beautiful Girls.
Yeah.
And I think Chris, you had just put up on Facebook an isolated track, and I remember Eddie's solos were crazy, but I was enamored with how is he getting that rhythm sound, playing those big chords, having it sound so clear and so beautiful and so intonated. How is he doing that? And then all this pocket and just grease. You know, it was just everything the dude was doing was just so juicy. And I honestly like checked out of Eddie. I was like, you know what? There's the one guy. I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah.
Because it's just he's that good. And to me, he was like so Eddie. It's like Stevie Ray Vaughan is so Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Yep.
You know, Malcolm's rhythm playing is so Malcolm. It's like, I'm not saying there's guys that can't do it, but for me, there's certain things where I'm like, you know what? That's theirs.
Yeah, leave it to the pros.
Yeah, I'm going to learn and I'm going to think about pocket and tone. But boy, you know, that Beautiful Girls track is stupid.
Well, what's cool about that is, and no disrespect to David Lee Roth, I'm a big David Lee Roth fan. There's just both sides of the camp. We won't get into that conversation and who's better because it's suggestive, whatever. But what I was going to say by that, when you get these vocals off these instrumentals and you listen to them, like I listen to it in the car, and I can only listen to it by myself or with the boy because Poison Ivy, when she's with me, she loves Van Halen too, but she wants to hear lyrics, right? So a lot of women do, right? Of course.
Sure.
But I crank it, and I mean, you think Eddie's good as a lead or a rhythm player. When you hear with no vocals, you're just like in heaven, and you hear things that you never heard before, and you're hearing these luscious rhythms and stuff like that. And here's the thing: if you're one of these analysts back in the day, you're at the clubs and you're watching Eddie, or you're just a fan listening to what he's doing, or blah blah blah, whatever. On paper, everything he's doing should not work. You add up everything he's doing these monstrous riffs, using a guitar to the point of no return, back before locking tremolo, double locking tremolos and things like that. And, you know, I've talked about this on the show before, too. When you think he's just doing a dive bomb and doing something crazy and pulling back and doing this before going to another note, he's not doing that just to show off. He's doing that because he's thinking, okay, I'm going to be just throwing my guitar out of tune here at this point. I know if I do this, it gets me back up to here. I get my guitar back in tune. Now I carry on with the note. And he's thinking it's almost like two steps ahead, you know, before he's doing it. And I've also said this too. He's like the Formula One race driver where the car is on the verge of absolutely blowing the engine and becoming a complete wreck, but only he can steer that to the finish line. You know what I mean? You or I or Chris gets in that car, and we're going to crash and burn and take out a couple innocent drivers on the way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, Shawn, you just mentioned it, that I posted that solo track, Beautiful Girls, and my comment was very similar to what you just said. It was, this is why Eddie is one of the greatest rock rhythm guitar players of all time. And, you know, there's a lot of great guitar players out there, but he just commanded his instrument like no other guitar player. Like it was his bitch, you know?
Yeah,
I hate to say it like,
no, that's right.
It's the truth, because he knew how to manipulate the instrument to such a degree, because some of the arguments I would have, like a guy would be like, man, I just learned the Beat It solo, Michael Jackson Beat It. I'm like, that's awesome, man. Play me Ain't Talking About Love, the verse.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to see you do the right thing, roll the guitar off a little bit and play in the pocket. And they're just like lost. And it's not this harsh criticism, but for me, it's like, I'm just saying that's the stuff I really heard with Eddie, was the way he just manipulated and knew that instrument to such a degree. He was just attached, and there's just this organic thing to what he does that really only he can do.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's all that crazy tapping, and I mean, that's all.
It's cool. At the end of the day, it's cool, but.
Yeah, but for me, being way more into feel and just, like I said, that pocket and that just, juicy thing, it's like Eddie, he's just the man.
I agree.
He's just a rascal. Yeah.
There's a good comment. Go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, Eric, you had said, guitar players are lazy, right?
Yep. Yeah. Some of us. I'm lazy when it comes to guitar. Sure.
Yeah, but see, Shawn, that's kind of where I was going with Shawn, is that I think you're the guy that everybody listens to and watches in these videos, and they're like, how does he physically do that?
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, I don't know if you were just telling me, Shawn, or no, it was that interview you did with the True Tone guy.
Yeah, Zach.
Yeah, how you just kind of explored, variations of scales to see if it would work. You took the time, but when you watch your videos and some of the lead work you do, it's very particular, but it takes a really precise knowledge of what's going to work together, and it physically is not lazy. It's something that actually takes, I don't know if it's muscle memory or a lot of practice, but you do something different than I know you're my friend and I know you do videos for us and stuff, but you do something different than any guitar player I've ever seen. And I think that's why, like, I don't want to embarrass you here, but I got a call from Mark Tremonti.
Nice.
He was playing our Dude pedal, and ironically, not to stray too far, he had just bought the Dumble head that we actually had here for a couple of weeks that we based the Dude on.
Okay.
He's like, wow, that's awesome, So anyway, he's like, man, the guitar player that's just kicking my ass right now is that guy Shawn Tubbs. And I get that from so many pro players, anybody, just any players are like, good Lord, what is this guy doing? And, Shawn's not going to be the one to tell you that, but, guys like Tom Bukovac locally, he's not going to say a whole lot about anybody, but I know that Shawn's been to his shop and he's heard him play, and I rarely hear Tom say anything, but he's like, now that dude can play.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to really push him to do these videos, because I think it's a treat for people to actually hear him, and I really want to see him do things like that Mateus Asado guy, where you're just doing songs. Just watch you play, because I honestly, you do our pedal videos, but 90% of the people don't give a crap about the pedal. They're just watching you play, just going, wow.
And at the end of the day, too, they're like, you know what? That he made that sound good. Maybe I can sound close to that, and maybe they'll still buy one anyways. But I agree too. I posted a couple of videos too, and I said, look, people, you don't have to thank me. You're gonna thank me. Trust me. When you discover this guy, there's so much music out there, and it's kind of fun watching some of these videos too. You watch some of these guys; they make the kind of memes out of them. The guy discovering Eddie Van Halen for the first time, discovering Jimi Hendrix for the first time, and it's people new, young kids discovering them. But I mean, there's and you guys know this. There's a million musicians out there that we haven't discovered, even ones that you and I, all three of us, don't know about right now. And we're going to find them tomorrow. We're going to find them next month, and there's going to be more. But I'm very happy that I come across Shawn's work, and it's totally 100%. I have to give credit where credit is due to JRocket. If it wasn't for JRocket audio pedals design, I would not know about Shawn, probably. Now, sure, okay, even with the Carrie Underwood name, I just didn't know, and I'm one of several that may not know. And when you discover Shawn's stuff, it's an absolute treat. I mean, Shawn's not putting any check in the mail. He doesn't have my address yet, but he's not putting any check in the mail to send me anything. It's one of these things where...
PayPal.
There you go. PayPal's good. It's one of these things where at the end of the day, we all need to surround ourselves with different styles of music, and I surround myself with a lot of rock. And thanks to my young boy, who is actually helping me with the Skype call here just before we went live, he's surrounding me with some good stuff too. I'm discovering bands that I would not normally listen to, Gorillaz and things like that, and 21 Pilots. I like them a lot because of my boy, and things that are not in my wheelhouse. Now I'm a Van Halen fan through and through, but getting to discover this talent. And do you know a guitar player up here in Canada? He's been on the show before. Shawn, you guys would be like twin brothers. Do you know Ian Thornley?
Man, love Ian Thornley.
There you go. You know why I know that? Because you guys are cut from the same cloth. Absolutely monster. He's the best guitar player in Canada, at least that I know of, and I think he could handle some of the world. Monster. He's a sewer player. Good friends with Pete Thorne. And my band got to open for Ian a few times, so about 3 or 4 times. So I got to kind of be chummy with them. He's good friends with Poison Ivy here, and he's like you. He's like Steve Stevens. One of these guys where, hey, I'm just a dude. I play guitar, but I'm a dude. And it's cool to watch him. But you guys are so similar. This atmospheric stuff and this, I don't even know what the hell you call it. It's just a style, and it's like outside of the box. There's no rules. You've learned the rules and you've broke them. I think you guys are pretty cool together for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Ian's definitely one of my favorite players. He it was actually, Chris, you'll remember, at Joe West's place. He had the Big Wreck album. I'd never heard it.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, you guys have to hear this. And I don't know if it was Albatross or I guess it would have been Albatross.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had actually just given Joe.
And it was sick, and I was like, who is this dude playing guitar? Well, it's the singer. I'm like, oh, great. Singer, songwriter, great.
Yeah.
The more I got into him, I was like, this guy is brutally good. And yeah, just insane melodic sensibility, killer tones, brilliant slide player. Guy sings like a bird. Yeah, I've never met him. I would love to.
He's super nice.
He's one of those guys that scares me.
Yeah, that's cool, and I really respect that coming from you. I respect that coming from you. Yeah, he's also 7 feet tall, but I mean, from a master player like yourself. And the one thing what I was asking him on the show is he does this one song with Big Wreck. It's called "The Oath," and to me, and I was totally schooled on this. I went into this interview thinking I knew what he was doing. And Van Halen's Cathedral, right? It's one of, obviously, other than Eruption, Spanish Fly, it's one of his focal pieces that all of us guys are chasing after, the delay tone, the swelling of the thing. And so anyone that doesn't know about Big Wreck, The Oath, after the show's done, look that up. It's probably my favorite song by them. Beautiful, beautiful song. And I thought he was doing the same thing with the delays from the volume swells. And I have to go back and watch the video again, but he was telling me this cool thing, and Chris, as a pedal manufacturer, you'll appreciate this. He was using these different MIDI clock things and a click track running into a series of gates, and the actual gates would physically clamp, like not just a noise clamp, but physically clamp it right down. And on the beat, it was clamping and releasing the notes and stuff like that with some delays. It was very, very complicated. I'll try to go back and find it, and I'll post it for people to share. But I was like, oh my god, and like it was like NASA to get this sound. And but it sounds just so beautiful, very cello-y, very violin-y, that kind of thing like that. Very, very cool. But and he still does it all the time, does it live. Amazing.
Well, do you know Michael Britt?
I don't know that name.
He's a guitar player here. He plays for that band Lone Star.
Okay, that name I know.
Yeah, and he's also kind of becoming really well known for his Kemper profiles. He does really, really good Kemper profiles. Well, he was the one years ago that turned me on to Big Wreck.
Okay.
And that tune, "You Caught My Eye."
Oh, that's a great song.
Oh, that one I don't think I know. I don't think I know that one. I'll have to look that one up.
Go back and listen to that, and listen to his guitar solo.
Okay.
It's a really top. It's 7 stories tall with a guitar solo, just blow your mind. I mean, it's just
that one note with all the feedback is just like, what, really? So from there, I'm like, I've become like the biggest Big Wreck dude around. I've like spread the gospel, right?
Oh, that's cool.
And we drive to St. Louis a lot because my wife's parents live there, and it's a good 5-hour drive for us. And I swear, she said to me the other day, "Oh my God, Big Wreck again?" It's like I'll just put the whole rotation on and be perfectly happy while my kid's back there watching his movies. And she's like, she loves them, but I'm that bad because honestly, man, I haven't had a band that made me go, wow, a long, long time. And when you're talking about what Big Rec does, it's not just so simple. It's, his vocals are amazing. His playing is amazing. Their songwriting is amazing. But what blows my mind is their lyrics are so
it's a package.
And powerful. And it's like, where do you get all that under one roof? And I always tell Pete Thorne, damn it, I want to do a signature pedal for that guy.
Yeah. He takes a lot in. Ian takes a lot in. I mean, he absorbs so much. That's why his lyrics are deep. And I think I was embarrassing him on the show because, I was just saying, I said, sometimes I think your guitar playing is overshadowed, and that's hard to do. And I think it's overshadowed by his voice. And then the fact that he's a cool dude. But I didn't want to put him in the same wheelhouse as Stevie Ray Vaughan, the same talent. I think there are some same talents in similar ways. I just didn't want to embarrass him. But I said, Stevie Ray Vaughan, if he wasn't going to be a guitar player for the night, he could be the singer and let someone else play, and his vocal would be as good as his guitar playing. Or if he's got a bad throat one night, he can't sing, someone else sings his guitar playing. Each one is a high caliber instrument. Ian is like that. He's an incredible shredder, and his voice is like it's almost like too good, And it's not one of these studio magic guys, with auto-tune and stuff like that. You hear that guy sing in a rock bar with whatever supply system is there. He sounds just as good as Cobo Hall. It's just insane.
And I love the influences. You can hear all that Zeppelin going on.
Yep.
Like that tune Diamonds on that Ghost record.
Say that the song Ghost. Is it Ghost that he does the Stevie Silver song?
Yeah.
It's in all that just room and like. I remember when I heard that solo, I was like, oh man, here we go.
Yeah, isn't it? It's funny.
So good.
Yeah, it's like, I'm just gonna put it. I can't find anything else scrolling through my phone. I'm just gonna put paper.
I do the same thing.
What's funny too is we get in the car, and obviously I always like to play Van Halen, that for sure. But if it's a trip, if it's me and the boy, and you guys will get a kick out of this, and this makes me a proud father. So I have the iPod in the car. I don't even have in my Camaro. I don't even have a CD player. It's just they don't come with them anymore unless you get the different one. So I have an iPod in the car, and it's always Van Halen. And the boy will say, "Can we listen to 1984 Remastered?" I'm like, yep, okay, cool, we can do that. That's kind of cool. But when Mom gets in the car, it's a Rival Sons thing. She loves Rival Sons, and I dig them a lot. And I can get into that. I like a lot of these. Some of these, I call them organic rock, kind of going back to new, old. And I like them. She loves them. And the boy and I were kind of like, oh, here we go again, Rival Sons again. But it is what it is. It's still good music. And I'm trying to find more of this too. And thank God that he's turned me on to some of these bands like the Gorillaz, a smart marketing concept there. They're kind of fake people on the outside looking in. So kind of like Kiss in a way. They can go forever. And then 21 Pilots is something I would never listen to, but now that he's turned me on to it,
my 10-year-old.
Those dudes are talented. And yeah, my 13-year-old is a big Panic at the Disco and 21 Pilots, all that stuff. But on the other side of that coin, it's like right now she's going through every single Pink Floyd record.
Oh, that's great.
She's going through every single Zeppelin record, every single Queen record, every single Foreigner record. So it's like my kids are all over the map. That's my 13-year-old. My 16-year-old, she's more into the really crazy like new stuff.
Yeah.
Like what is this electronica stuff? But I mean, some of it is just like haunting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's so well done. And that's the thing. I'm all over the map with what I listen to. I kind of just, if it moves me, then I like it.
Yeah.
Because there's stuff where I've been in here working, and I'll hear something on the TV set, they got iTunes going or whatever, and I got to poke my head out and go, what is that? And she'll be like, it's Hiatus Coyote or some crazy. I'm just like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Insanely good.
Yeah.
I get laughed
with my 16-year-old. Huh?
No, I was gonna say I get laughed at because you know me, right? The hi-fi nut. I'll have Dave Brubeck rolling in the background.
Yeah.
People are like, what are you listening to? And I love Miles Davis, all that. I mean, I just go the whole gamut because it suits your mood. And that's what music is all about, And it's like some days that's what you need. My son, it was great because, as Shawn knows, and you do as well, Eric, from the last time I had my coughing attack, because I spent half my life at an ice rink, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
I used to do that as well.
Yeah, and I have a 10-year-old that's, hockey is his life. In fact, we're getting our butts kicked right now in a brick tournament here by all the Canadian teams.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Canada, we're pretty good.
Oh, yeah. We're losing 15-0.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Go Canada. I'm sorry, but go Canada.
Yeah. We're like, it's 10-0. Maybe you guys want to just pass the puck a little bit more.
Yeah, come on, yeah.
Yeah, but, on our way to hockey practice, and the Who comes on. Who are you?
Mm-hmm.
And, man, he's just like, what is that? I love it. And I love the fact that you can take a 10-year-old before all the social influences happen, and they can just appreciate what good music is. And that's an old recording, but it's stood the test of time. And a 10-year-old is just like, can you play that again? And I'm like, that's awesome, dude. I love that stuff.
Yeah, it's so cool.
You know where I think there's been salvation in music industry like that with guitar players? I almost gave up on it years ago. I'm thinking, okay, well, no one's going to know what guitar heroes are anymore. And this is when I worked in music retail. I worked in 2 different big music stores, and where my persona or my I guess my opinion changed on the future of guitar players and kids learning music and that when they'd come in. And I heard some kids saying to the guitar teachers, "Can you teach me Red House? Can you teach me, Comfortably Numb?" I'm like, "Oh God, kid, I love you and I love your parents, and whatever it was. But thank you, like wanting to learn this stuff. And now we are seeing a new, what's the word I'm looking for? An evolution, maybe, of these kids, and they're discovering that sometimes it comes from their parents. And I've had some people on the show. I've got some young guests coming on the show. They're coming on next week again. Jacob Daraps from Montreal. He's like a doppelganger of Eddie Van Halen from 1976. He's like 19 years old, whatever, maybe that. And he can play the plexi, no pedals in between, and sound like Eddie Van Halen. I need like 17 gain pedals, like 12 metal zones, and all this kind of stuff to even come close. But it's because of the parents. Another example is one of the regulars in the show. He's still probably here, Darren Moore. He discovered Van Halen through the video games, right? So, I mean, these kids are getting influenced, and I think that's another reason why it's so important for bands to get their music into these video games. Hit the kids where they are, whether it's maybe you're going to have a new tone on Snapchat or something or whatever. Hit them where they are, and then, that's that band. I got to check those guys out. Discover them. Go buy their music. Hopefully buy their music, not download it. But discover all this new stuff that's out there, and there is some hope for the future generations of us as musicians. We're going to pass the torch, and we want to make sure we're not passing it to someone that's just hitting the space bar and lets it play. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, with that being said, it's like there's cats out there like Blake Mills is a perfect example of a younger cat that is so roots. Yeah. So just have you checked him out?
No, and I have to.
Oh gosh. Yeah, he's utterly haunting because he's a young guy. I mean, I say young because I'm old, but he's a relatively young dude, and he just plays with so much soul and all of that. Ry Cooder and Stevie Ray and all those insane players, Buddy Guy, and they're all there, and all the Wes Montgomery. You hear all that in this kid, and every time because when I think about the guys we're losing, BB's gone. Mm-hmm. Jimmy's gone. Stevie's gone. We're losing. Allan's gone.
Allan's gone.
Amazing. Like,
and the anniversary of Prince today too. Another great, often overlooked as a guitar player, but great.
Very much so. But it's like, well, gosh, who are the torchbearers now? Who are we?
I know the next guitar hero. That's the thing. I talk about that a lot. Yeah.
Like, who's the roots guy? So for me, I look at guys like Blake Mills.
Okay, good.
And who was that kid we were just talking about, Chris? He was demoing an amp, Landreth. Joey
Landreth and Ariel Posen. Yeah, those guys from Brothers Landreth.
Yeah, he's like a 70-year-old dude's been playing his whole life as a kid.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
So for me, I'm like,
they're fellow Canadians too.
Nice.
Brothers Landreth.
Okay, fantastic. Yeah. You almost sometimes think, I mean, I'm not one of these people who necessarily believes or disbelieves in reincarnation, but sometimes you wonder about that. Was this gene passed on? Because it's almost too weird to figure it out.
It's a good question. But, I look at guys like, heaven forbid, when Jeff Beck goes and Eric Clapton and we're getting that close.
I know. Wow. I know. I've got some heroes in my mind that I'll be taking many months off of work and being in hibernation. The heroes. There's not a lot of them left, man. Yeah.
You know, and I'll tell you what, when those guys go, it's going to be really hard to recover what they provide, because it was a really telling moment for me when Jeff Beck played here not too long ago, and we went to see him. And, you know, it was that new Loud Hailer record where he did it with those girls from the band Bones. Mm-hmm. The girl Rosie is the singer. Anyway, you know, full-on British accent. So even, you know how typically when you hear somebody has an English accent, they don't sing with an English accent?
Yep.
She does.
Okay.
And it was kind of cool, right? It was just kind of this nasty sound. And they have this song on that Loud Hailer record. What's it called? Something for the Children. Well, I'll have to think of it later. But it's basically a song about how, you know, we're kind of doomed, the future, you know, what are we going to leave for our kids kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we were fortunate enough, we got to go backstage and meet him and meet her. And my wife was so, like, she didn't know who Jeff Beck was, right? I just said, yeah, come to the show, right? And she's like,
who's this Jeff Beck?
They play that song, and I look over, and she's literally in tears.
Wow.
Right? She's in tears. And she's like, that's, like, I've never been moved by music, and it was the way he plays.
Yeah.
And so she got to meet Rosie, and both of them actually, and all she cared about was, how did you come up with that concept? How did you guys write that song? And it was interesting because he just kind of wrote it, and she came in, and it just made her feel a certain way, and that was the lyric she put to it. And they were pretty brutally honest about it. But I mean, how many times did somebody get moved to tears by a guitar player for the most part? Yeah, there were lyrics and things like that, but the sections where he just plays, it's emotional beyond what you hear in kids today, because I think kids spend so much time on YouTube, they become imitators. Yeah,
I know.
Innovators are falling through the cracks, and, you know, like, the young kids aren't going to realize when guys like Allan Holdsworth go away, Jeff Beck, all these crazy
Jimmy Page. You know, I mean, but you've got, like, you know, I always grew up, you know, not to over spiritualize, but even as a kid, I was very cognitive of the fact that music was a very spiritual thing. Mm-hmm. And I knew that I could be moved by a sound, not a word. Yeah. And I realized that when I was really young, and that's what hooked me. You know, so music is extremely spiritual. And I think the more these young cats that are killer players can realize that, the better they're going to be at emoting truly spiritually moving stuff. Whether you believe in that or not, it happens. You can call it spirit, you can call it heart, whatever that is that's moving you, it's innate in music. It's just always there.
I agree.
And for me, I can hear a vocalist sing a vowel and be literally moved to tears.
Yep.
And I've been that way since I was a kid. So music is extremely spiritual, and that's the one thing I would tell all these young cats that are getting all the crazy chops. It's like, man, anybody can do that. Mm-hmm. But if you can break somebody's heart with a couple notes, you are seriously onto something.
That's why for sure tonight I try to find a takeaway on every episode, and we're getting close to wrap up here soon too, but still got a good 10 minutes or so. I want a takeaway of tonight. I want everyone to check out two guitar players, and number one, I want them to check out you, Shawn. And I actually have posted your YouTube link in the description of this video, and I've got the link to JRocket Audio as well. But I want you to check out Shawn's stuff, and I want you to look up Big Wreck. You can look up Thornley, because Ian Thornley was under the Thornley moniker solo for a while, and it is that thing too. It is that moving music, and that's the reason why I'm not doing it for being the good guy or anything like that. I'm doing it because some people may not discover this music, and I want you to hear it. And because I listen to all this, you know, guitar tapping and all this all kind of really, really cool stuff all day long. When I heard your stuff, it was like, okay, here we go. This is that, you know, it's like you're in one city and you got smog all day long, and then all of a sudden you go to another city, you can breathe a little bit. That's what it was like hearing some of your music. And Ian is the same way too. And I was so happy to hear that you were from that wheelhouse too, because I figured you would. I just figured you were probably, you know, stepbrothers or something, you know, whatever the case may be. But check that out, and that will be the takeaway from tonight's episode, that there is some good music. And then when you check it out, and then do the favor, pay it forward and tell your friends about it, because now you're going to be the hero to the next guy. Thank you for telling me about Shawn. Thank you for telling me about Ian. Thank you for telling me about, you know, these other guys from Canada and this other kind of stuff. It's the pay it forward thing when it comes to discovering new music. There is a little bit of onus and responsibility in us to share this stuff. Don't save it for yourself. It's cool that you found it, don't keep it all to yourself. You know, we're the world is changing, and I think it is our responsibility as musicians to give more back, you know, and share this stuff. Because if not, the audience and the world becomes smaller and smaller and smaller, and we're so big today. We can do this. Let's do it.
Yeah, and it's crazy how these little dudes find this stuff, because, you know, the whole Big Wreck thing, obviously I'm a big fan, but my 10-year-old son, he has access to my music.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe the other day, well, I shouldn't say the other day, it's about a month ago, every single day since then, he found that tune, A Speedy Recovery, off of the new Big Wreck album, right? It's not a hit. You don't hear it on the radio, but he found it. He makes me play that tune for him every single day, anytime we're in the car.
Nice.
You gotta play that. And I'm like, you know, if you know the tune, it's not a pop tune. It's not something that's going to grab somebody because it's got some sort of, you know, typical thing that the, you know, younger generation would gravitate toward. It's a heavier tune in a lot of ways, but man, it grabbed this kid. And it's like, it says a lot about somebody who's writing a tune that can grab a young kid like that
and move them.
To the point where he wants to hear it over and over and over. When it is a big, you know, heavy melody line or some sort of, you know, funk rhythm or whatever, you know, that those natural things that we gravitate toward, there's something about it. So I have to give those guys credit, you know, with what they do, because man, every record is different and every record is good.
And as a dad, as a dad speaking to a dad, I know I can say this about you. You're probably like, you got it, kid. Here you go. Play. Yeah. You know, then why not? Yeah. Why not?
Oh yeah, because I love it. You know, believe me. Yeah. 21 Pilots, all that stuff, all the stuff that the kids listen to. He's all down for that. But I love the fact that he's open for something that isn't that.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's totally my girls. That's totally my girls. You know.
Yeah.
You know, Queen, and I mean the fact that my 13-year-old's like, oh, and Elton John, like heard Yellow Brick Road and literally wept. I thought she was hurt or something, and she had it on a turntable. She just had her head down, and she looked up with tears welling down. I'm like, are you okay? He's like,
no, it's emotion.
This is a song I've ever heard in my whole life. And I'm like, that's spiritual.
Yeah.
Something, there was a connection.
Yep.
You know,
that's
and
right.
It's not easy to do, you know? So
I hear you. I'm gonna jump back over to chat one last time, and then I got one last question for you, and this can be for both of you. It's more of a country music question, but it applies to EVH gear as well too. And then you guys can both comment on your opinions on it. And I have to apologize to the people in chat. I've really neglected it tonight, and I totally apologize. My right hand lady is she's down for the night now. She's not feeling really well, and she really runs the chat. So it shows how much I need her. But it's real quickly to say hi to Phoenix Rover. He joined in a little bit late. Lots of conversation about guitar stuff, and I know there's going to be some great conversations after the show. Just see if I missed anybody that's new. Citizen Kane's joining. They're talking about certain guitar products and tone and things like that, having conversations with one another. Very, very cool, and that's what it's all about. Bane Rocks actually is my younger son. He's joining. Says, hola, friends. And he's a kid that's going to have a future in music because he's schooling me already. He's telling me stuff. Nope, this isn't how you do it. And at first I get offended by it. And then I'm like, okay, I'm proud of you, kid. The kid, I'm so happy for our kids today too, because now you can go to the music store with $500 and walk out with a guitar and an amplifier that, you know, is phenomenal. You know what I mean? Whereas when we were kids, you know, you go to a yard sale, you got to get a tetanus shot before you can play the strings because they're, you know, blah, blah, blah. So kids, you have it really good today. And they start off with good gear, that kind of stuff. And another thing too, here's another piece of advice. I don't usually do advice on the show. I'm not like Dear Abby here or anything like that. But we kind of alluded to this, like the armchair quarterbacks, the kids, people, not kids, us too, us adults at home playing with computer stuff. And it's one thing to shred on the couch and shred on your bed, but you know, practice those talents and chops, but go out and play with some bands, do some improv or do like open mic night and just try it with the band. And it's going to be a bit of an eye opener for you to do it live with bands, watch people watching you. You don't have the comfort of sitting down, but you work on your chops at home, but get out there and play as well too. And it doesn't have to be a paying gig. If you can't get paid, go do some open mic night stuff and just try it in a live environment too. Let me see if I missed anybody else here. Citizen Kane. So a couple new people joining the show tonight, really enjoying it for the first time, which is very, very cool. And again, I apologize if I've missed anyone. Will Dunham. This is very cool. Will Dunham's one of our regulars as well. Says, say hi to your guest for me. He's a great guy. Saying, I hope Poison Ivy feels better. Sam 5150, my good buddy from LA. Really, really good friend. I'm sorry I missed you, Sam, that you must have joined in here earlier and I didn't get a chance to acknowledge you. So I'm going to say a big warm thank you to everyone joining in the chat and participating. Next week, I promise I'll be a little bit more on the ball with you. But I had one last question, and I feel like I'm not doing my job properly if I don't ask an EVH question on an EVH talk show. The thing that's really cool, and this, if you look at the EVH gear artist roster, you look on there, and for some people, it's like, whoa, it shocks them because it's all metal. It's like metal, and it's like this like this kind of stuff. And then yet there's some country guys, all right? And my question really was, now obviously Shawn, one of the big gigs he does is one of the greatest country bands in the world. There's a lot of guys, and maybe girls as well too, switching to they're using EVH gear, bringing it into the country environment. And what is it about it you think that's working? Is it just because it's a tool that works for them? Is it something that works well with country music? And maybe sometimes not even just EVH gear, other brands that would normally be looked at for a rock and roll environment, they're bringing it to the country. Maybe tell me your opinion as the country artist, and then maybe Chris can comment what he thinks on that as well too.
Well, I mean, country music is so what I would coin is kind of pop country.
Okay.
And speaking of guitar players, like Tom Bukavac's a perfect example of a guy that's an absolute beast of a guitar player, and he would bring in like his repertoire from 70s rock into a song, and it kind of just created a thing. So, I mean, gone are the days where you show up on a country gig and you better have a telly and a deluxe reverb. Those days are done. You can pretty much show up with whatever. And as long as you're dialing it right, most of the tones that I do with Carrie, they're high gain tones.
Yeah,
they're
true.
Every once in a while, like Cuba's Got a Shotgun, I would have to do a telly thing, two-step telly. But for the most part, in country music anymore, you could easily show up with an EVH amp. And I won't say that the stigma, like if you did show up on an audition with an EVH amp, you might get some raised eyebrows, but at the same time, if you pull it off, they don't care.
That's right.
But I think that's why those types of amps are fitting into the format better, because my amps, the other guy on the gig, I have one too, but Ed on the gig played, before we went to Fractal, played a Dirty Shirley.
Okay, yep.
That's a country gig.
There you go. Yeah, exactly.
It fits fine. Yeah. It's just country has changed enough now where, like I said, you don't have to show up with an old deluxe reverb and a telly or get a room,
Yeah. And what about your thoughts on that, Chris?
Well, I think everybody's card should be pulled if they're not a Van Halen fan, right?
Yeah. All right. There you go.
Country or not.
Yep.
Country or not, I don't even care if you're Chet Atkins. Stick a Floyd Rose on that Gretchen.
Yeah, there you go. Get rid of that Bigsby. You need a Dew Tuna and
kill the pipe on that thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be sweet, right? I get so many people that because I grew up that way, and I'm very limited. I should say I'm stranded in the 80s, but I pushed it away for so many years. But I'd get guys that would come over to demo pedals, and I'd play like this. Warren DeMartini meets Van Halen meets country.
Yep.
They're like, what are you doing? And they were so interested in learning that lick. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. That's why it worked for me. Yeah. But in saying that, our buddy Michael Britt that we talked about from the band Lone Star, he has had a 5150 head for years.
Yep.
And I've seen every amp under the sun come and go from his house except for that amp.
Yeah.
He's always had it, and he loves it. And Lone Star, they're as far from Van Halen as you're going to get. But
yep.
Mike's a huge Eddie fan, always has been. So I think that most of these guitar players, if you start digging a little bit deeper, a lot of them do the country gigs because that's what they do as a gig. But as a guitar player, it's hard to deny just the complete depths of where Eddie's playing will grab you as a guitar player.
Yeah, well, I think of guys like Ryan Warner. I think I'd mentioned him to you, Eric.
Mm-hmm.
His dad is Steve Warner, who Chet Atkins literally certified as a certified guitar player. Ryan is a beast, and can play country all day long, but then turn around and put up a high gain sound and shred.
Yeah,
just tells you kind of guys are way more versatile. They're way more into everything. It doesn't have to just be country or just shred. It's just players, man, that are real players. They kind of just, man, they can do it all.
Yeah. Well, look at Paul playing with Taylor Swift. I mean, he's a huge Van Halen fan. I mean,
killer at that stuff. And another example. It's
Yeah.
and of course Taylor's pop now, but she was country for quite a while.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's
Well,
very
and
cool.
a lot of these Nashville guys, they're not aware that it's actually illegal to not be a Van Halen fan.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know. The bill's going to be passed, especially with Trump now. I mean, if you're not a Van Halen fan, you live in Nashville, actually, there's going to be penalties. You'll definitely be on the other side of the wall.
Yeah. You got to have documentation in.
That's right. That's right. Van Halen cards. Here's a show, Chris, you'll like to see in the coming future here, too. I'm going to have Greg Renoff, the author of Van Halen Rising, on the show. That's going to be fun. You're going to want to watch that one. And
Sure.
the history buffs, the historians, and that, you're going to really love that one for sure. But I think we're going to wrap up in a second. But I'm telling you, I know a good night. And here's my example of a good night. When I've got a list of questions here, and I went old school tonight. I actually printed them just because my iPad's dead. I have extra questions, which means I get to have you guys back again. And next time, I want to have a look at these glorious, glorious guitars of Shawn's. And the thing is, I mean, we can go all night long, but I mean, I like to save things and make people want more, as we do in the entertainment industry. Have you come back on, show some of these beautiful guitars. Maybe next time, possibly, we'll look at doing some guitar performances. Won't promise anything. But if you at least go check out Shawn's stuff tonight. But I've got links to both you guys' entities in the description below. I want to thank you both again for not only coming on, but sharing some great insight, both in your careers and just, it's fun going left and right here every once in a while, just talking about this stuff. And I know the fans in the chatter, they're actually understanding the fact that I don't have my right hand lady here tonight. But we'll have her back next. She's here. She's gone to bed for the evening. She's in a lot of pain tonight. We'll have her back soon. And looking forward to this. It was a really great thing. As always, I always like to say I like to try to be the warm-up band for the weekend. My band for years was always the warm-up band for somebody else. Now with the talk show, I just want to warm up the weekend for you guys. And I think having great guests on like you guys, I think we totally warmed up the weekend. And I think my job here is possibly done.
Man.
Well, hey, Eric, I'd like to say something before you go.
Sure.
And it does have Van Halen time.
Okay, good.
So we lost a really amazing artist
Yes.
in Allan Holdsworth.
Yes, we did.
Last week. And Allan was a very good friend of mine and one of the best human beings I've ever met. One of the sweetest guys I've ever met. And there's a tie in the fact that I've read and been told the stories about the Road Games album that Eddie Van Halen worked on and produced, or produced some of. And there are stories out there all left and right about how they got in a fight and, blah, 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 blah. They couldn't agree on anything and things went sour and, all sorts of stories like that. And when I was shooting the video for his Peddle, I asked him about that.
Mm-hmm.
And, true to form, he said, that's absolute garbage. He said, Eddie Van Halen is one of the nicest people I know. And he's a great, great friend. And that is absolutely not true. So if anybody was ever wondering, that's straight from Allan's mouth. But
that's nice.
I just want to say rest in peace to Allan.
God bless his soul.
Because he was an awesome guy. He had his demons, but man, I said it in a post on Facebook that when he hugged you like he hadn't seen you for a long time. And he was just amazingly happy to see his good friend again. He wasn't that type of guy that's going to give you a bro hug. Mm-hmm. He was a genuine soul, and he'll be missed, man.
I hear you on that one. I felt it that day. I saw it in your post because I saw you posting both. It was either you or your brother. I'm not sure who posted it. You. Okay, I thought so. I figured it was because I thought it was you posted from your personal, then with JRocket. And I really felt the pain because obviously you worked with him as an artist. I didn't know he was that close to you as a friend, so that's awesome as well. But I felt that. And I was moved by it. I can't say I was moved in the way you were because I didn't know the man. I just knew of him, and I appreciated him, respected him, was influenced by him. But there's only been a few artists in the past few years that have hit me like that, and people I didn't even really realize I was a fan of. Like, was I a fan of Prince? Like, I liked the songs. Was I a fan of David Bowie? Like the next guy. But when those two passed away, something connected with me. Obviously, it's like, okay, let's add up every Prince song that I ever heard. Let's add up everything David Bowie's done. And all of a sudden, it hit me like a truck. Like, it's like, I don't know why, because I liked him. I obviously liked him more than I thought I did. And the same with Allan Holdsworth. It's like, holy cow. And then you don't want to think about tomorrow because, 2016 was a bad year. And I always get a kick out of this too. People say, well, 2016 was a bad year. Well, no, it's not a bad year. We're just all getting older. It's the way it is. 2017 is going to be a bad year too, unfortunately, because we're all getting older. I feel it every day, like in the bones and stuff. But a big loss for sure, and it's something that the legacy will continue. And I guess maybe one way to pay respect to Allan is to teach, share some of this music, start posting some stuff. There's a younger generation that might not have heard it. Get it out there, because if he can make Eddie Van Halen say, "I can't copy him. He's a good guitar player."
Yeah.
Yeah, and Eddie said that. Yeah. Eddie goes, "I'm mad because I can't copy his stuff." So it's fantastic.
He came from another planet, that's for sure.
He did.
We called him Big Al.
Yes.
He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. That's the thing. You think guys like that are going to live forever.
No.
You never imagine, like, Allan, what? Because that was my thing. It's like, are you kidding me? Is Allan gone?
Yeah.
And it was kind of the same thing with BB. It was like, wait, what? BB's gone? Chuck Berry's gone?
Yep.
What? Those guys don't pass away.
I think we look at these guitar heroes, and this is just me speaking for myself. Maybe you guys agree. We look at our guitar heroes like our parents. Unfortunately, I've lost both my parents, who are huge, especially my mom, was a huge catalyst in my music career. We think they're immortal. And all of a sudden, one day they're gone. And it's like, okay, what do we do now? Now we got to be the boss, and it comes to music. Okay, well, now we need to carry the torch, whether we can do it ourselves as a musician. If we can't, share the music and carry on the legacy for sure. And a lot of people expressing that same sentiment over in the chat. So a lot of people saying rest in peace, Allan. So very nice. I think a nice way to end the evening by, giving respect to one of the world's greatest guitar players who's influenced a lot, and, carry on the legacy. And that applies to all aspects as well. So gentlemen, we're going to turn it over to the outro here in a second. I want to thank both of you for joining us. And all the fans on the show tonight. We had a great time. Have you back on again. We'll schedule it to maybe towards the end of summer, and when you both have some free time, and we'll see what touring schedule works out for Shawn. So don't hang up, guys. I'll just say goodbye to you off the air. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and we will talk to you all very, very soon. And turn it over to the outro. Talk to you soon, everyone. Turn it over to Little Man. Cheers.
My name is Eric, and I'm playing looking guitar.
Video production services provided by Design 39 Media. Visit design39media.com for all your website, photography, and video production needs.